oh man, I can't afford to add that to this customer.
You can't price because your competitor's pricing that way. Hey, it's Brett Chittum with Lawrence Systems, and I'm here with.
Jason Slagle, CWR. Wrong
Hey,
way
I got to
again.
learn how to point this way. Well, this is Business Technicalities, and we're here to talk today about pricing for your services because I know Tom and I did something years ago on this, and I think that based on the relationship we've been building with Jason and their team, um, looking at the way they do things is just it's incredible, and the journey you went to get there.
Oh, thanks. It's Valentine's Day. You're being all mushy with me.
Oh,
So actually, I'm curious to dig into you guys a little bit. But I mean, I'll tell you how we started pricing, right? So like it's been a many year journey, right? Like we haven't really covered the history of our company on here, but man, we've been around for, I'm trying to math in my head. This is 28 years this year.
wow, yeah,
In April, it'll be 28 years. We were born out of an internet service provider down here that did some consulting. And when the ISP sold off, and Alan at the time started doing consulting, how do you price? How do you start pricing? Well, you just look at what all your competitors are doing, and you price yourself the same as them, right? So, and
yeah, sure,
I think that's the most naive way of pricing, and I think that's how a lot of MSPs start. Is they do a little bit of competitive research and they figure out what their competition's doing, and then they determine whether they think they're higher or lower value than that, and they raise their price appropriately, right? So if they're
right,
new, maybe they're trying to undercut, so they're charging a little bit less, right? But it's a one-man shop. It's not that hard to do because you can figure
yeah,
out what it takes to make you profitable, but your competitors could be losing money, right? If you look at like Paul Dipple stuff, the service leadership stuff, like the
hmm
bottom quartile of service providers, I think the bottom half lose money, right? So pricing
right.
yourself against your competitors that could be losing money and barely staying afloat may not be where you want to start.
No, when you think about that, because I know when people start that one man shop and stuff, they're trying to do the entry price, right? They're trying to figure out, okay, what's it cost for my tools, and then what do I want to mark up? What do I need to make, right? And they forget the thought about, well, wait a minute, what happens when I grow?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you afford that?
And I mean, there's a couple components of this, right? One of them is, the hourly component. If you bill anything hourly, like
Hmm.
project work or time and material, if you're new to this. And I mean, the other side is your packaging, I'll call it, right? So it's like,
Right.
you may have one or more packages. A lot of people will tell you need three, right? We could talk
Yep.
about that too. Like, so let's
The
table
power
that.
of
We'll
three.
come
The
back.
power
We'll
of
come
three.
back. Yeah. So with your strong sales background, I have really strong opinions about the power of three. So
I
let's table
actually
that.
do as well. That'll be a fun one.
Let's talk about like pricing the hourly stuff, because I think that's actually
Yeah.
the easiest, the first one, right? So I
Mhm.
think the first way that people tend to price stuff is that they tend to price it based on competition goes. How about, what do you guys do?
Well, I know that our pricing model has changed hourly dramatically over the last few years because, one, because of competition, but the other because of the education that our staff has received. I mean, we were billing at one rate for a long time for consulting, and realized that our engineers are more talented than that. We need to
Yeah.
price for talent as opposed to price for. And right now, our pricing for stuff we do, there are other companies out there doing it for less than us, but we're still getting the business.
Yeah.
I think you need to price for what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think before we were just pricing because that's what everybody else charged, but as
Yep.
we've grown in that, we're pricing for what our value is. It's the worth.
Yeah. So when I started in this journey, right? So like I turned 43 on Friday, right? And so I started working for the ISP
Wow.
in 1997.
Mm,
So I left. I haven't been with CWR forever. I just hit my 11-year anniversary last week back at the company after spending a number of years in enterprise and a couple startups
mhm.
and some other places. But like 18-year-old Jason, we'll call it 20-year-old Jason, like 2000, right? Like not old enough to drink Jason. Used to go out and I'd get called out to these these companies where I'm troubleshooting internet access, and they'd have a consultant there, and the consultant's just like bumbling through the work they're
Hmm.
trying to do. Like they're just like banging on the keys, hoping the results there. And the immediate thought that came to my mind is, man, the consulting life must be nice, because the dumber you are, the more money you make.
I
Right?
I
Because
did it. I
yeah,
did it for a long time. Yeah.
it, it's so, in the pure hourly rate, it's like it's if I'm twice as fast or three times as fast, it's really hard to charge twice or three times the amount of money. But it sounds like where you landed at is you do have to charge more, right? If I can do it twice as fast as the other guy, and I
Hmm.
charge 1.5 times the amount of money, I make good money,
Right.
and the customer's happy because they're saving money, right? So as long as you can articulate that like, hey, we're good, we're going to be faster than the other guys as a result, I think you can draw a little bit of a premium there too. But I think that's still a naive pricing approach.
It is. The thing is you have to think about. I mean, a consultant, and I, like I said, I did that for years, but I believed that with the clients I worked with, they weren't going to be clients forever.
Yeah.
I had a set point of where we needed to be at a certain time, and after that I'm no longer needed. And that was my goal as a consultant. I think the goal in IT is to fix something so it doesn't really need to be fixed
Yeah.
again, right? That when you talk about network integration or storage solutions, that you build and develop something that will work long term, right? And
Yeah. And I mean, we use that as a sales pitch against like the break fix shops that we compete
yeah,
against, right? It's like they only make money when things are broken.
right.
Right? Like maybe they do a tiny bit of preventative maintenance that you're paying them for, but like they make the most money when you're having a bad day,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've boasted. I mean, and it could be that our pricing model, and you and I talked. Our pricing models are completely different. Yours and ours, completely different. But I've taught when I talk with clients and when I'm talking with new prospects, it's really about we I can count on one hand how many clients we've lost since I've been here because of what we do to be totally preventative, building something that's going to work that you're not going to have to
Yeah.
call us every 10 minutes, or every other day to fix and figure out. We have clients that use different phone providers, and that's been great because we use OIT, you use OIT VoIP,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and they're a great partner of ours, and I've been able to transition people because of these other phone providers that don't give the service, or they're not fixing the problem, right? They're creating more problems. I think we gain our market share and we keep our market share because um, for our pricing may be lower than yours, but we're also we're trying to make things work for long periods of time so that one, we don't
Yeah.
get bothered. We
Yeah.
need to change that model a little bit, and based on our discussions, we've been working towards that. But pricing is a difficult thing.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that's segues to like eventually you mature and you decide that
Hmm.
like recurring revenue is great. Like it'd really be nice to not constantly have to sell these consulting engagements or wait for the customer stuff to break. So you kind of move into more of the
Right.
MSP model. So how do you price that? And again, I think a lot of naively, I think initially a lot of companies look at what their market is running per seat. They do a little bit
Hmm.
competitive research. They talk to some friends using other competitors. They're charging $85 a seat, so they're like, I'm going to charge $85 a seat. And again, the competitor may be losing money. So I think that's approach one. Then you go to
Hmm.
approach two, which is the one that we still do a bit of it, but it took us a while to get there. And I think this is similar to the model that you're presently using, and I call it cost plus, right? So
Hmm.
if you go to Nigel Moore has a really good book on pricing and packaging, so shout out to
Yeah,
him.
he does.
Basically we have a calculator that we use that we can plug number of workstations, site, some
Hmm.
complexity factors, some other things into it, and it spits out like an estimated cost, right? It spits
Right.
out what we should charge a customer based on the profit margin we want to make, the number of hours we suspect it's going to take to support their environment, and the cost of all the tooling.
Right.
So that's cost plus pricing. And it works. I think a lot of MSPs can survive for a long time on cost plus pricing. It's a little bit volatile. Like you're probably experiencing that now because I know
Hmm.
you guys are adding stuff to your stack, right? So now
Right.
stuff's more expensive. And you're like, oh man, I can't afford to add that to this customer. My profit margin falls too low.
Yeah, and it's funny because profit margin is not really profit margin if you think about it, right? You also have to
Yeah.
think about cost of what a tech cost and paying the bills, keeping the
Yep.
lights on, right? And growing because if you start to get too busy and your pricing is too low,
Yep.
you can increase you're going to start imploding, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to really you're going to have unhappy customers. I think a customer would rather pay more and get a better service
Yep.
than pay less and not get the service they've been getting.
Yeah, I mean, we preach that, right? Like,
Hmm.
and that's part of a sales discussion. And sometimes it's kind of hard, right? It's like, your traditional break fix model is not incentivized to stop issues from happening because that's when
Right.
they do the majority of their billing. Whereas, let's flip the script a little bit. I'm gonna give you a budgetable fixed price, right? And I make
Hmm.
the most money when you have no downtime and you are happiest, right?
Right.
I make the most money when you're not calling me. So it
Yep.
behooves me to do everything in my power to make your experience amazing and awesome so that you don't call me that often. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
and I'll tell a story. I have a friend that is the line electrician for the GM, the Hydromatic, the transmission plant
Hmm.
here. Right. So they make transmissions up on Alexis Road, which
Hmm.
you may know where it's at because you're pretty close to us.
I do.
He is the electrician that's in charge of PLCs, right? So he goes in, he's third shift. He goes into the place. He's got a nice loft up there and he sleeps. He goes to sleep. And and some of the people on the
I don't
line, they
know
get,
if they I don't know if people want to know that.
but it's okay. He's allowed to
Yeah.
sleep because
Right.
if he is sleeping, they are making money.
That makes sense.
If he's awake,
Oh,
they're losing money.
I totally get that. I actually understand that. It's kind of like if you look in the medical field, um, doctors, make good money on preventative care, right? It's all
Yeah.
about preventative care. Interesting.
So yeah.
Well, I've seen your model. You've shared your
Yep.
your algorithm with me and stuff, and I've tried to really break it down and figure out how we could do that same model. We're not there yet. I mean, we're different pricing wise, but it's exciting to see different models. And I think when you're thinking about your pricing, people need to understand that everybody's going to do something different. Everybody values different things
Yeah.
at a different margin and at a different rate, right? And so you can't price because your competitor's pricing that way.
Yeah. No.
You said it perfectly. You don't know if they're losing money.
Yeah. I mean, the I 100% you don't, right? And a lot of them do, right? So that kind of takes us to the last pricing model that I think that you tend to see used for these package services, which is value based, right? So it's
Right.
like, let's take a look at what the value we're providing to the business is, and we'll price according to that. And
Hmm.
increasingly we kind of use a model like that, right? Like it's nice to give a customer a nice round number, right? Instead of you run it through a calculator and it's 3,493.75 a month. It's like that's really specific, right? We're just going to round it up to 4,100 or 4,000.
Right.
Give us a little bit of wiggle room, right? Like that's what we feel like the value we're providing you is, and that life is good. And then I don't have to nickel and dime you, right? It's like
Right.
our current pricing model, we don't revisit pricing with the customer unless the user or device count changes by more than 10%.
Is that that's how you do it? I love that.
Yep.
I love that. I know. Um, we in our model we're still, and when someone adds something we change their price, and when they take something off we change their price. So it's almost like that, having every 6 months your insurance policy change, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the model you built it so that it can sustain that, which is
Yeah.
actually really new. That's the first I've heard that. That's actually really
Yeah.
cool.
So I'm a huge data guy, right? So
Hmm.
I Deming, the into the crisis guy,
Yeah.
the guy that is he brought like the Toyota production system to the US.
Right.
And he talks about control charts and standard deviation and all these like super mathy terms. And to me, I consider our cost to the customer is something that I can almost track in a control chart. I have a
Mm,
profit margin that I'm trying to maintain, and then I can go so many standard deviations away
right.
from the mean. And if we drop below that, then we need to look at raising prices. If we're
Right.
above it, we've actually lowered prices or added services because we're making too much money on a customer and it's not a healthy relationship, right?
And
So,
there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually
yeah.
great.
Because
It
I never get it right, right? Like all of these things are estimates of the number of hours that a customer is going to take
mhm,
because labor is yeah, there's tooling. Tooling costs money. It's not cheap, but
right.
labor is the most expensive single component of my stack and my package. So, if a client isn't using enough labor or the estimated amount of labor, there's a couple things. One, that's a big red flag to me that maybe they're going
Mhm,
to churn away because they're not calling and they're never going to see value.
right.
Or two, like maybe their needs are that low and we're charging them too much, and we should look at lowering prices or adding service.
That's integrity, my friend. Integrity. I actually do a business talk about business integrity, and I label it, "Have you put your shopping cart away?" And you think about the integrity somebody has in putting their
Yep.
shopping cart away,
Yep.
and the lack of integrity somebody has not putting their shopping cart away. They have no idea who they're going to affect. So when you have that integrity in your pricing model, that's huge. That's a
Yeah.
good corporate citizen for you right there.
I have to say I'm really enjoying these just getting on with you and chatting about these various
Mhm.
things. We were kind of joking beforehand that I have a lot of opinions, and I am not afraid to share them. So
Yeah.
yeah, each one of these
Opin-
topics. I'd love to hear what people want to hear about, right? Like we have our list. I think we have another six or seven in our list of
yeah.
things that we might possibly talk about. But man, what do you guys want to hear from us? That's my ending remarks. What do you want to hear us talk on, ramble on about for 15, 20 minutes?
Right, because we're not doing this for our own edification, right? I learned from Jason. Jason may learn from me. I don't know, but we're doing this for the edification of the community. It's about growing the IT community and helping the IT community be better in business, right? You guys did the I hate my job is not a good business plan, helping you to develop some of those things you can actually incorporate into your business plan, and pricing's got better be one of them.
Yep.
um, so when you're thinking about pricing, don't be afraid to ask your competition. Don't be, but also ask the right questions. Okay, you're pricing at $85 an endpoint or 150 an endpoint. Is it what's your margin like? Are you making
Yeah.
money? Do you have profit? And so when you're thinking about your pricing, think for the future, think for how you want to be. You've got your 5-year, 10-year plan. If you want 20 employees in 10 years, what's that pricing model got to look like now to be able to do it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are
What?
industry metrics around that you should pay attention to
Hmm.
too, right? Like we talked about KPIs already, but I think we
Hmm.
could dig into those a little bit. Maybe in an episode around the various models that exist. We could do a dive about that. I can
Yeah.
venture to learn about Sea Level and Gary Pika True Methods. I
Hmm.
know about several of the others. Maybe we can compare and contrast some of those.
Absolutely. There's a lot to talk about,
Yep.
but what does everybody want to hear? How about that?
Sounds great. And
All
then I
right.
think I think we're bad YouTubers if we don't say those things about the buttons at the bottom.
Like
So
and
press them all.
subscribe.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends about us. Let's see what we can do to build this channel to be something that's even um, more apropos for all of our listeners, right?
Cool.
I'm using big words today. Sorry. We better end this now. This is business technicalities. Make
See
it a
you
great
later.
day.